Congresswoman Pelosi, are you at all concerned that the new January 6th committee will find you liable for that day? Are you at all concerned about the new January 6th committee finding you liable for that day? Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions.
So let's talk about the civil war that the Democrat establishment is currently fighting with the lunatic, crazy, progressive left. And apparently that drama has now reached San Francisco, California, where none other than Nancy Pelosi is currently facing a coup from the radical left. That is right. Grab your popcorn, everybody. And it would appear that she will either be facing major primary challenges that it looks like might actually succeed in 2026, or perhaps option B is this is a pressure campaign to essentially get her to retire and step out of the race, although the end outcome there would be the same. And I really do think this summarizes, as you'll see both Pelosi and her candidate challengers in this race, the current crossroads that the Democrat Party is at. It's either do we embrace the failed politics of our geriatric corrupt establishment, or do we embrace the similarly failed politics of our insane progressives? It's like, do you want old people who suck or young people who, yes, are younger, but are insanely more crazy and unpalatable to normal Americans outside of a city like San Francisco? Well, when you look at the Zohran Mamdani phenomena currently grasping Democrat voters in this country, it would appear that geriatric establishment is in a little bit of a crisis situation, and there is nothing that can be done about that. So again, Nancy Pelosi here facing a primary challenge, although it's worth noting about both of her challengers. I mean, it is San Francisco after all, but she is basically going to be running, if she does run here, against two of the craziest people you could possibly see. Okay, so we'll tell you all about the situation in today's video. Again, Nancy Pelosi looking like her career could be over thanks to these lunatics. 86 years old, by the way, but apparently still hanging on. What else could be said about the Democrat Party at the moment, but we'll tell you about it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is not only the best way to support our work, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, so this actually kind of started earlier in the week where a progressive guy by the name of, I don't even know how you say this, Saikat Chakrabarti, apparently announced he would be running a primary challenge against Pelosi. Now, some people might say in good faith, well, maybe actually the Democrat Party doesn't sincerely need new, younger leadership, except when you simply listen to this guy's bio, which I'll play for you in a second, you start to realize like, oh, so it's a lose-lose situation either way. So take a listen here. This is the first primary challenger to Pelosi, and then we'll tell you about the second one, who I think genuinely is actually more insane.
He was campaign manager for AOC when she beat Joe Crowley in one of the most stunning political upsets in American history. He also was her chief of staff after that. And he is now running against Nancy Pelosi. And there are already rumors that Nancy Pelosi might step out of the race. Can Saikat go 2 for 2? He joins us now. How you doing, brother?
Hey, Cenk. It's really good to see you.
Right. So this guy is basically a Zohran Mamdani clone. Again, a major campaign manager and like chief of staff and all that stuff to AOC before. But again, it's San Francisco. I wouldn't be surprised, frankly, if this guy has a chance, except for the fact that apparently a new challenger has further stepped in the race by the name of California's state senator, Scott Wiener. Now, some of you, I'm sure, have heard of Scott Wiener, but if you've not, to make a long story short, he is someone who really lives up to his own last name, because you're talking about an insane, like crazy, very radical LGBT activist who has spent essentially his entire political career in California passing laws in favor of the castration of children and all that stuff. And just to give you a couple of examples, there are more, but this is California Senator Scott Wiener, close friend and ally, by the way, of Kamala Harris. Some of the bills he has pushed in the state assembly, again, all of the craziest ones you could possibly find. That includes Assembly Bill 957, which penalizes parents who don't affirm a child's trans identity. In other words, right, parents who maybe want to say, hey, I think you're just confused. Maybe we shouldn't like undergo, life-altering surgery or hormonal changes simply because you feel a certain way. I don't necessarily agree with this lifestyle. Not only can you be penalized, fined, but you can further, right, have your children be taken away from you, maybe even go to jail for that. So, obviously, as I said, not really joking, this guy's agenda is essentially child castration, but it goes further. SB 107 removes an out-of-state child from their parents if they want to travel to California for obtaining gender transition. Right. So even if you're not from the state of California, you can have your kid basically run away from home and try to get to California. And if they do, you legally cannot even get the kid back before they undergo their transition. So yeah, as I said, like, this guy is a lunatic. This guy, I think something is wrong with him in the head, but it doesn't stop there. Okay, SB 145, by the way, reduced the penalty for offenders who sodomize children as young as 14. That is right. So he passed another law basically lessening the penalties for pederasty, pedophilia, molestation, right? Again, this is what we're dealing with, but hey, it's San Francisco, so wouldn't be surprised if this is how the same exact way the voters feel. SB 866 allows kids to consent to medical decisions without their parents. By the way, 66, yeah, very fitting there, right? So in other words, if your kid is 10 years old and they want to go on puberty blockers, and you as the parent say no, the kid can just go to the doctor, say, I feel a certain way, and completely make life-altering changes to their bodies. And it doesn't stop, okay? SB 239 says it reduces the penalty for deliberately spreading AIDS. You guys might remember, historically, it has been a crime, and a very serious one, to knowingly give AIDS to other people. Now he wants to get rid of that as well. And in SB 132 requires prisons to put males in female prisons if they claim to feel like a woman, which, by the way, has created a lot of the crazy horror stories that you've seen about someone who is obviously not even trying to be transgender, but just feeling in that way, going to prison and then doing you-know-what to the female inmates. So yeah, that is this guy's entire agenda. He of course calls anyone homophobic and transphobic for simply thinking that, I think that a lot of this stuff is maybe a little bit crazy, right? But that's of course who you are dealing with. It goes on. Yesterday there was a hearing, not yesterday, but just reading from this tweet, they did a hearing to discuss funding for Prop 36. Now, for those of you who don't know, Prop 36 is the ballot amendment that passed in the state of California in 2024 with an overwhelmingly 70% vote that basically reversed all of California's soft on crime policies, because it turns out actually that even in liberal states, people don't like the idea of smash and grab looting and mass crime. But for those of you who don't know, the reason why California basically still has the same crazy, insane crime problem is because the fact that the legislature and Gavin Newsom refused to fund it. So keep that in mind, right? You're talking about the party of democracy. The people democratically voted to say, hey, please crack down on crime. And simply because the elected officials disagree with it, right, they are refusing to fund what the people actually voted for. So of course, it's like, oh, even our liberal voters went against something we don't like. Therefore, you will, of course, not get what you voted for, guys. But anyways, Scott Wiener said in response, and I quote, I have a strong objection to the state providing more operational support to local law enforcement. So, you can tell it's not just about the LGBT stuff. This guy is an insane leftist radical in all regards. But again, you can't make that up. This is the character running against Nancy Pelosi. And according to a lot of liberal media, looking like he does have a strong chance of actually winning and getting to Congress. And I'm sure, by the way, that's not going to have a blowback or backlash effect in the rest of the country. Like, you think Zohran Mamdani, folks, right now looks bad, looks radical? Wait till this guy is the successor to Nancy Pelosi. There's been Senate Bill 316, shoplifting, increased penalties for prior crimes, right? Stop the smash and grabbing. Again, this is what the liberal electorate of California overwhelmingly voted for. But Scott Wiener, the castrating of children dictator that he is, failed to pass thanks to the nay votes from Wiener, Skinner, and Aisha Wahab, and of course many others there. But all of that said, I do want to show you the campaign that the fittingly named Scott Wiener is actually running on here. So let's actually play for you his campaign ad, and you can just see exactly what we're talking about, all right?
My family escaped fascism in Europe. I never thought the United States would slip into fascism like we're seeing today. San Francisco has always been on the right side of history, standing up for democracy.
Harvey Milk was actually not a good guy, but as usual, the left makes martyrs out of like the worst people, but okay.
And civil rights, even when it's hard. I'm Scott Wiener. I'm running for Congress to defend San Francisco.
Literally running on that flag. Like that's his official logo. You know, next to the Wiener. You can't make this up. Okay, this guy belongs in an institution. He's insane. He's a lunatic. And of course, now apparently pacing to replace Nancy Pelosi, guys. Yeah, but the Democrat Party definitely does not have an identity problem. Because again, the choice is what? Corrupt establishment geriatrics or Scott Wiener, right? Great crossroads you guys are at.
Francisco, our values, our people, and the Constitution of the United States with everything I have. I've stood up to violence and hate my entire life. Trump and his MAGA extremists don't scare me. They won't stop me or the people of our great city from fighting back and doing what's right. In Congress, I'll continue holding insurance companies accountable so families get the medical care they need.
He's only doing that, by the way, to ensure that the insurance companies cover gender-affirming quote-unquote care. Just so we're clear, in case you were already confused on how crazy this guy is. I mean, there's your answer, right? And oh, there you go, right? Protect LGBTQ kids and families, right? So that's not like exactly this is something dark or kind of in his closet that he's hiding from people. No. This is like directly, he's very proud of the fact that his entire political legacy for his whole life has been advocating for, castration of children. And then he's running on that publicly saying like, yes, this is my agenda, guys. And then, we'll see what the voters think of that. But
LGBTQ kids and families. I wrote and passed California's law banning ICE from wearing ski masks like secret police. And I'll continue my fight for more housing so we have an affordable, inclusive, innovative city. We can't expect anything less from San Francisco's member of Congress. Join me now before everything we believe in is lost for good.
okay. So you can see, actually, as a matter of fact, to correct myself, he is running on other issues, right? It's not just about the child abuse. It's also about apparently like moving Section 8 neighborhoods or communities or complexes right into your neighborhood, right? So, there you go. That's the agenda there. That's the political platform. It's more Section 8 housing right next to you, just like San Francisco does, and more life-altering hormones being pumped into children. There you go. Anyways, I want to point out some more details about all of this from the local news in terms of like how serious is this guy as a candidate. And again, I want to point out extremely serious, right? I would argue this guy is way more mainstream than the other one, the Saikat, Chakrabarti, whoever that is, right? One of the most popular members of the California State Senate. He's going to have a lot of resources on his side. And frankly, I would venture to guess that, especially in San Francisco, this guy is fully looking like he is on pace to actually take that seat. But anyways, very notable about this, though, is that this decision, as you can see, was expected to come after Pelosi made an announcement that she was going to retire, right? And yet, instead, Scott Wiener basically just announced that anyway, which shows what as well? There's no more respect for the Democrat establishment behind the scenes, and this might actually be like an elaborate coup attempt, right? Announce the primary challenge before Pelosi even makes the decision in order to pressure her to leave political office. Here's the backstory. So the San Francisco Standard previously reported Wiener telling political allies that he planned to run in the 2026 race rather than letting Pelosi decide if she would continue to seek her position as the representative of the 11th district, a seat she has held since 1987. The outlet also reported that insiders were expecting Wiener to wait for Pelosi to make a decision in the coming weeks, but obviously he did not do that because we do not have official confirmation of anything from Pelosi, but that is just simply the fact that, of course, he's running, right? You have people like the Scott Wieners of the world telling Pelosi that she's actually not not radical or corrupt or insane enough, right? So keep in mind, when all of these Democrat kind of activists say that our current leadership is not meeting the moment, this is what they actually mean. They don't mean that the establishment is too corrupt or maybe too off-putting or any of those things to Americans. It actually boils down to you're too tough on crime. You're not radical enough on the gender stuff. You're not embracing enough crazy like socialist policies or other such things. You know, you don't want to advocate to destroy the society and the economy enough. You're not enough in favor of open borders. You know, it's shocking to me how little they understand about the 2024 election and what that moment actually signifies. Like, do you comprehend that it is a rejection both of the woke and the establishment? Like, two things can be true at the same time? Because they keep pointing fingers at each other, right? The Democrat establishment says, oh, we lost because you socialist AOCs of the world are putting people off. The other side is saying, no, it's because the establishment. No. Like, people would like to have, if I were to guess, a kind of normal, old school, populist Democrat party that was both like against establishment corruption and against radical, insane wokeness. But clearly they can't figure this out and they think it's either or. And so, as I said, right, whatever direction the Democrat Party goes, whether that's more Pelosi's or adding the Scott Wieners of the world to the picture, they're kind of screwed. And it's worth noting that it's not even stopping there, right? We've covered earlier this year, but Mamdani and his far-left allies in New York City are even looking to potentially primary Hakeem Jeffries and other New York House Democrats. And this could be something, especially when you look at the coup that just happened against Pelosi, that Hakeem might have to keep his radar out for, right? He's the Democrat minority leader, hoping to be the next Speaker of the House, and yet it's not really confirmed if he will even be running for election next year. Just saying.
You asked Jeffries about Zohran Mamdani in New York. Let's look.
You're so afraid of Zohran Mamdani. By the way, when are you endorsing him?
By the way,
do you endorse him for mayor?
First of all, are you
going to endorse him for mayor?
Listen, you're a complete and total embarrassment right now.
Oh, why is that? Because you don't want to answer the question?
Is this supposed to be a video for your failed re-election?
You don't want to answer the question? Do you support Zohran? By the way, did you see his statement yesterday?
Listen.
An embarrassment on October 7th, blaming the Jews. Do you support that? Should he be the Democratic nominee for mayor?
First of all, I don't answer to you.
Yeah, we have that statement. Basically, Mamdani on the October 7th anniversary yesterday pointed out that according to the Hamas Health Ministry, 60,000 people have died in Gaza. Pretty tone deaf on Mamdani's part. Did he ever answer your question about endorsing Mamdani?
No, of course not. He's betwixt and between. He's afraid to say no because obviously that will result in a primary challenge in a district in which Zohran Mamdani got about 70% of the vote in the Democratic primary.
Right.
And so he's petrified of that. But he also realizes that Zohran Mamdani is a disaster for Democrats all across the country. And so he's betwixt and between, and that's why he's stuttering and stammering and can't answer the question honestly.
Yeah, well, there you go. And this is the problem that the party faces. Either you fence it, which nobody likes a fence sitter, or you go totally in the direction of the failed establishment, or you go totally in the direction of the insane progressives. Like, there is no simple good option here. That's why they're in such a corner. That's why, for instance, on the Democrat shutdown, they look like idiots, and according to the polls, they're completely bungling this issue, and they can't even effectively communicate what they're doing to the American people, because they know, right? It's really just to appease the radicals, but we also don't want to admit it's about the radicals, so it's actually like just about Obamacare or something. Like, it's all a mess. Okay, it's all a mess. But anyways, have fun, Democrats. I would argue you made this bed for yourself, because for years there was a rising tide of radical extremism within your own party, and you didn't oppose it because you saw these people as, oh, that's like the energetic opposition to Trump, right? It's the same thing as the Antifa issue, for instance. They have not condemned these people because they've known for a very long time that, oh, well, you know, they're intimidating conservatives. They're harassing Trump supporters. They're rioting in the streets, went back in 2020 and Trump's the president. So maybe we can use that to make Trump look bad and then use it to basically do what they did in that election. But now on the flip side, what is happening? They've invited a bunch of insane, crazy communist lunatics into the party, into the ranks. And now what are the insane communists doing? Because that's in their nature. They just destroy things. You see what they do every time they protest in the streets, right? They literally destroy things. So now what are they coming to smash? What are they coming to destroy? The Democrat establishment, the status quo of that party itself. And again, It's like, look, you could have had your sister soldier moment years ago. You could have pushed back the tide of extremism. Instead, you decided to coddle these people. You appeased them. You allowed them in. And then much like the Palestine protests against Biden in 2024, this is what is now currently happening, right? The radical left is taking over your party. And, well, have fun with that, right? Hakeem Jeffries totally deserves it. Nancy Pelosi totally deserves it. This is their creation. You know, we tried to warn them. But there you go. All right, with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.